process, which is, to its credit, pretty transparent, should not stray an iota beyond its proper jurisdictional limits. We have an independent prosecutor in England and Wales. Scotland also has a separate independent prosecutor. And so far as England and Wales is concerned, generally speaking, and there is criticism from time to the contrary, but generally speaking, the tests that are applied, the standards that are applied to those tests, and the avoidance of any political points being included in those decisions are absolutely imperative. And that means that it's very important that if advisors are used for the purpose of advising on a prosecution, those advisors too should be seen not to be invested at all in the issue that's under consideration. Otherwise, that will discourage people, countries, from joining the Rome Treaty, because it will not be seen to be abiding by, using the phrase technically, the rule of law. And we do have to be careful not to conflate using the term genocide as though it was a general term that covered all the other crimes that are covered under Articles 7 and 8. And we do have to remember what good prosecutors do. Sometimes, and I've operated a good deal in the terrorism field, it is possible to bring a charge legally of a terrorism offence. But it's wiser not to if there are many other crimes that can be brought, in themselves extremely serious, which would produce an adequate remedy. And I think we have to be very, very careful to interpret the term genocide in the way in which it was intended to be the most extreme form of mass murder, which is designed to wipe out a whole nation or something similar to that, as happened in the Holocaust. The Holocaust is our template for genocide. The Holocaust, which killed 6 million Jews in Poland, as it happens, many of them my ancestors, is the standard that is set for that term. And we should be careful not to conflate it with what might be lesser, if extremely serious offences, which would result in the individuals who are prosecuted, because it is individuals, as I reminded you, spending the rest of their lives in jail. And so I say that to uphold the rule of law and the independence of the ICC requires the best of the best, and we are here today to take that message with some meat on the bones back to our own parliaments.
Thank you, Lord Alexander. Can we now have Senator Belhirch from the Netherlands?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank the Pakistani Parliament and His Excellency Syed Hafid Kamara for hosting this event, and PGA Secretary General Monica Adamy and her staff organizing this. We see that humanity has a long struggle with conflict and impunity. History has been marked by repeated cycles of war, conflict, and impunity. With great sadness today, we still witness such atrocities, such as in Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, DRC. It seems we are in the highest conflicts and wars in history, which demand our urgent response. Amidst this painful legacy, we today see a world of polarization, lack of dialogue, decline of respect for human rights, rise of far right and nationalism, and decline of support of multilateralism. Although the global community has shown determination to combat impunity, to address today's injustices, to prevent future atrocities, and protect the dignity of all people and our future generation, still many steps have to be taken. Nearly 20 years ago, the International Criminal Court was founded. marking a transformative step for global justice. For the first time, a permanent court was empowered to prosecute the most serious crimes: genocide, crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression, when national systems fail to act. The International Criminal Court is vital not only for investigating and prosecuting severe international crimes, but also for fortifying the rule of law on a global scale. Justice requires that those responsible for heinous crimes face a fair trial. Seeing perpetrators held accountable honors the dignity of victims and reinforces the integrity of international law. Accountability is not an option, it is a must. We see, however, that the ICC faces significant challenges, particularly the role and political pressure from states in the Security Council, states who threaten to withdraw or actually withdraw from the Rome Statute. And we have also seen states, but also politicians, threaten ICC judges and prosecutors. Such interventions undermine the court's mandate and jeopardize justice. We must stand firmly with the judges and personnel of the ICC to ensure they can perform their duties without fear or bias. The financial dependence of the ICC is also a challenge. Insufficient funding hampers the ICC's ability to carry out thorough investigations, conduct trials, and support and advocate for victims. Without adequate resources, the court is unable to operate effectively. Another challenge is that the ICC's reach is limited by its member states. Countries that had not ratified the Rome Statute restrict the court's ability to prosecute international crime globally, creating gaps in accountability and undermining its deterrent effects. And last but not least, the dependence on member states cooperating regarding investigations and arrest warrants. Universal adoption of the Rome Statute is critical for a truly global approach to justice. The more countries that join, the broader the ICC's jurisdiction, making it better equipped to pursue justice for victims of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. These challenges show that we must act now. Supporting and protecting the ICC's independence is essential. Political interference not only threatens the court's mandate, but also endangers the broader cause of justice. We need to act to safeguard the ICC's integrity to ensure it can hold perpetrators accountable impartially and objectively. What can we do as parliamentarians? As parliamentarians, we are not bystanders. We hold a responsibility to act, promote justice, to advance the rule of law, both nationally and internationally, to protect justice by ensuring our national policies align with the principles of human dignity and human rights, and to advocate for those whose voices have been silenced. For example, in the Netherlands, upholding international justice is not just a choice, but a constitutional duty. The promotion of an international legal order is enshrined in our constitution. For example, in our parliaments, questions are asked about the support of the ICC, of what is done about countries that threaten judges and prosecutors. Next to that, we in Parliament support funding the ICC because financial security gives independence and also the power to be effective in its work. As legislators, we can and must advocate for greater national support for the ICC, ensuring our governments honor the principles of the Rome Statute, defending the court's impartiality, and support collaborative international justice efforts. Our collective support can fortify its resilience. We must actively uphold its integrity by backing its work and supporting its mission of justice and accountability. Therefore, the work of PGA and our membership of parliamentarians of the PGA is very important, and of course also meetings and dialogues that we have here. The independence of the ICC needs our commitment through dialogue, resolutions, public support, and urging governments to collaborate with the ICC. We as parliamentarians can resist attempts to undermine the ICC's work, strengthening its authority and credibility. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. These were the famous words of Martin Luther King. They remind us that fight for justice is universal. If we allow injustice in one part of the world, we compromise justice everywhere. Let us work together and to a forward future where the ICC is a universal beacon of justice, protecting human dignity, upholding human rights, and standing with victims worldwide to create a safer and a more just world for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Can you now have Honorable Sher Ali Arbab from Pakistan?
Thank you very much. Those who know the preamble of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, the most serious crimes of concern to the international community as a whole must not go unpunished. I hope it rings some bells. Going to the written speech now. Honorable colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to be sharing space with honorable colleagues from different countries and to be talking about safeguarding global justice through upholding the rule of law and the independence of ICC. Whenever judiciary and the role of judiciary is encroached upon by political expediency or various international establishments, the end result is the murder of justice. We can come up with so many technicalities, definitions, jurisdictions, but at the end of the day and at the heart is dispensation of justice across the globe to make this world more just, more equal, and more safe for everyone, not for certain blocks, not for certain communities, and not for certain interest groups. When World War II happened, and when the Holocaust happened, the world, there was no UN, there was no International Court of Justice, there was no international criminal court. And based on the horrors of the Second World War, international community and nations decided to form the League of Nations and then the United Nations and then all of these global establishments in order to make the world more just, make them more safer and equitable. The challenges that the ICJ and the ICC in terms of political interference that it faces are very serious ones and grave ones. We see there are different examples where at times warrants are issued at a lightning pace, and then in cases which are more serious and grave, the action is somewhat slower. That raises concerns. That also undermines the trust in these institutions. There are a number of examples. There have been countries threatening to sanction the ICC, to withdraw financial support, as esteemed colleague mentioned about financial independence. This is not how the world would progress, the world that has been envisioned after the disasters of the Second World War. Right now, we are at an important junction. A lot of atrocities are happening in Africa, Ukraine, and perhaps the most significant the most underreported by at least global international news outlets is the genocide. And I'd say again, genocide perpetrated against the Palestinian people and the Lebanese people. You can come up with different definitions, you can look at different perspectives. If you look at all of international organizations, whether it is Amnesty International or so many others, they all agree on what is happening. These developments, even here in Pakistan, there's hardly much information about Congo or Kenya or all of these countries. Are they less human beings than any other in the world? No, they're not. Because the principles based on which these institutions were developed were based on fairness, based on equality, based on international law, and in the ambit of international community. When we talk about international community, there is no distinction between who lives in the east, the north, the south, or anywhere else. What is extremely important now is to ensure that the ICJ and the ICC are made truly independent, so that no nation state, no matter how powerful, can exert pressure and interfere in the independence of these institutions. Because these institutions have a lot of hope, they have a lot of promise, they have a lot of potential, but this potential is also at risk. The most important thing for all of us to talk about is to be very objective and very honest. Because, I mean, reading from a document prepared by a research wing it's fairly standard. I think speaking from the heart, appealing to humanity, and objectively talking about what needs to be done in the name of humanity is something that we all need. We need to be honest about what is happening. Yes, each and every country has national interests. We have constraints, we have trade obligations, so many other things. But at the end of the day, amongst the League of Nations, those nations have a significant place who are not only honest to their own constituents, but also globally. And that is what is important, and that is what we need a lot more of. As long as there are examples, as long as there are going to be variances in dispensation of justice, these institutions will be perceived with skepticism. As I said, we can go into all of these technicalities. We can go into different articles of different statutes. At the end of the day, reality remains reality. Injustice is injustice, whether you look at it from any lens, from any part of the world. Oppression is oppression, whether you define it in French, Dutch, Urdu, or English for that matter. So what is important is to realize, take cognizance of the realities, the injustices, because what happened in the past have been documented. What is happening now is live streaming on your phones and your screens. So, and I'm talking about each and every conflict zone, not just Palestine, or not just Kenya, or not just Congo, or not just Ukraine. So it is important. Why? Because we are parliamentarians. We are not bureaucrats. We come from the people. We are voted into our respective parliaments by our constituents. We have to listen to what they say. We have to listen to what their outcry is. So important towards the end of these of this annual forum is to come up with objective, actionable, clear, crisp, and honest statement on the realities. Because us, as I said, we don't necessarily represent the governments. We represent the people. And a public representative, a person who represents people, must have a perspective that is pro-people, not just sort of going to a certain overall theme. So thank you very much. I don't think I've spent 10 minutes, but actually I have.
No, thank you very much. Okay. But we cannot waste your research. Can you please give your paper to the secretary so that they can circulate it? You had a long presentation and you spent time researching that. Thank you very much. Can we have now Honorable Kavetuna from Namibia?
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. Namibia have ratified the Rome Statute in 2002, and our PGA chapter, it's the most active one with a lot of programs, and that have been very, very active for the last years. My take today is actually on the issue of, on the two terms, the human rights and the safeguarding of justice. I think it's very, very important words that are very fundamental to the existence of human being. When we are talking about human rights, they are universal, and many countries enshrined those words of those terms, of those concepts in their constitutions and other laws that speaks to the protection of the citizens of those countries. But still, as we are talking, many human rights violations are there. And we are still trying to speak and say that we are making sure that justice will prevail to everybody who have been violated or whose rights and others have been violated. To come back to the issue of rights and violations, these violations, the human rights violations in many countries range, so they are so vast, they are ranging from social, psychological, economical, environmental, political factors that leave the people just in a pool of uncertainty and displacement and war sometimes. So it is very important that we as PGA start looking at this justice that we would like to protect, the granting justice to people by making sure that we do not have a selective approach towards this, because when you look at violation of rights, it will always differ from one country to another. And what is in the north might not be in the southern hemisphere. For instance, when you start prioritizing the issues of sexual and reproductive health, but then you forgot that in many countries, children are violated because they do not have facilities like hospitals and other things. So I think that packaging of looking at human rights as a comprehensive and a complete package will help us to make sure that we provide the justice that we want for our people. And the other issue is that the PGA, as an organization or as a structure, it's so much well placed in order to promote the justice that we advocate for. But it can only happen when we have our members educated and members equipped and capacitated. Because political or parliaments are the one most institutions where you have a high turnover, because next time when we are coming here, maybe 25% of the people that are members of parliament might not be members of parliament. So it's very important that if this structure is supposed to advance the agenda of protecting human rights, that we also have a systematic approach towards empowering and capacitating our members as they come in and as they are going out. Otherwise, you will have workshops attenders that might not, or conference attenders that might not even have an understanding of the role of what the institutions entail. Well, PGA members also need a strong allies. And in some countries, for instance, my country, the NGOs are very, or civil society organizations are very weak or non-existent in some numbers. They exist when there is funds that it say, we want you to promote the issue of same-sex, then there is money and they come up. But there is not really a standard approach of NGOs that there to advocate for issues that are committed to issues of the country. So I think it will be a fatal exercise if parliamentarians have these words in lawmaking and programs that they would like to implement in terms of promoting human rights and stand up for the people's justice, but there is no structures under their with whom they can work, of allies with whom they can collaborate. And very important this morning, the speaker said, and I really found it very necessary for me to quote this, that us as parliamentarians, we are accountable to the electorate. That's our function. There is nothing less or more about this. So when we are dealing with issues of our people that we protect, that we are representing, we should be having that having in mind that we are promoting and improving on their hopes and aspirations. Because when they are voting us, they want us to deliver and make sure that their hopes and aspirations have been taken care of. On the ICC itself, I think there have been so much spoken about. We spoke about the issues of the cases. We have got the reports that we have been receiving. But I want to outline one thing that is very important to me, that I think that it can also make cases better, because the scope is so limited of the prosecutor, especially of the prosecutor. The way that initiations of cases can be done, it's having maybe 4 ways that the prosecutor can initiate, or when a country launch a case, there is very little ways. But there is also one word that is actually very dangerous for the promotion of justice. It says it should be the court of last resort. But do we know that in some countries there is not even another layer of courts? Just like, for instance, there is no even way that you can appeal on something. So how will it be a court of last resort if you only have just one line of justice system? When it's said it's gone and it's like that, then how will it become the ICC become the court of last resort? So I think that we need to start to be very proactive in thinking on mechanisms on how we can cater for those nations that are finding themselves in situations, because the one-shoe-fits-all approach that we might have as an ICC in order to look to launch cases might not be productive and might exclude a huge number of countries that might not even have a justice system in itself, that are actually led by kangaroo courts that decide this is what's supposed to happen, and there is nothing that can happen. So it's very, very important that we need to relook at that. And last thing, to my own interest as a Namibian, I'm wondering what is the right procedure, or what is the way that the ICC can be of assistance to the issue of the Namibians, two Namibian tribes, and the genocide committed by Germany. Because we have come to a level that nobody is really, there is no court in Namibia, first of all, that can be able to prosecute or to pronounce itself to the case of the genocide committed by Germany. So what is it that we can do? Because they will not recognize the term genocide. They all come with issues of other terms, that it was an error, it was a whatever. That process, I think it needs it needs somebody else to alert Germany that you have committed genocide against the Namibian people, because it was an extermination order that was given by a German commander. So there is nothing that we can do without an international organization like this. Lastly, I would like to thank the PGA and the government of Pakistan for welcoming me and my delegation to this important platform, and that I hope that the resolution from here might help us to shape and to have a better way that we can safeguard the justice at a global level and in our own country. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable. You want to start, if you talk of those colonial era atrocities, you will also be interested, because the British also did similar things to us. I know the Lord is here, but he knows that. So, but thank you very much. So, please, we are running short of time, and we can start the process of asking questions, getting clarifications from my panelists. Oh, sorry. I need, sorry, Doc. Yeah, no, yeah, it's the last one. Is the last one on our panelist, Dr. Chao Sik-yang from South Korea. Thank you, Doc. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm the last speaker of a long day. Please bear with me. So Mr. Chair asked me which side of Korea I came. So of course, southern side, south side. The other side of Korean, no freedom of traveling yet. So Your Excellencies and the ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, Assalamu alaikum. I stand before you today on behalf of IAPP to address a critical matter that affects the entire international community: the role of the International Criminal Court in upholding global justice. IAPP, the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, is an association of current and former lawmakers dedicated to peace and welfare for the people. Distinguished colleagues, as lawmakers, you understand better than most the fundamental importance of the rule of law. The ICC serves as a humanities court of last resort, handling the world's most serious crimes. Just as you in this chamber work to ensure justice for your citizens, the ICC works to ensure justice knows no international boundaries. The independence of the ICC is paramount, just as we in each nation would protect the independence of our own judiciary. We must support the ICC's ability to act without political interference. This independence ensures that justice is applied equally, whether to leaders of powerful nations or those with smaller status. However, esteemed representatives, we face significant challenges. Major powers, including the United States, China, and Russia, even Israel, remain outside the ICC's jurisdiction. As a member of the international community and a supporter of global justice, each nation has a crucial role to play in addressing these challenges. I propose that this assembly consider the following actions. First, strengthen your nation's support for ICC investigations and proceedings. The second, use your diplomatic channels to encourage broader international participation. Three, allocate appropriate resources to fulfill your obligations as an ICC member state. Four, support civil society organizations working to advance international justice. Honorable members, your position as registrators gives you unique responsibility. The laws you pass and international agreements you ratify can strengthen or weaken the global justice system. Consider this. In supporting the ICC, you are not just supporting an international institution. You are investing in a more stable and just world order. Also, I would like to remind you that you have civil society partners who are willing to stand with you. The International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, with its international membership, takes its stand based on principles that we believe will benefit for all of humanity. As you debate national policies and international commitments, I urge you to remember that a strong ICC serves both your national and global interests. It provides a crucial deterrent against the worst crimes known to humanity and ensures that victims have a path to justice. I hope you will demonstrate your nation's commitment to international justice by strengthening your support for the ICC. In doing so, you will help shape a world where justice prevails over impunity and where the rule of law protects for all people. Thank you for your attention to this crucial matter. I look forward to working with you as a member of civil society to advance these important goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. We now have via Zoom from Egypt, Amina Sabah. I think she's up there.
Thank you so much for bringing me to the floor. I wish I was there physically, but I'm happy also to participate and see parliamentarians coming across the world to discuss such a very important matter. Coming from the Middle East, and given that all the spillover effects of the war in Gaza is having its toll on the Egyptian narrative and on the whole region, actually, I urge this group and I urge this meeting to share a statement regarding the stance of the international court system from what is happening in Gaza. Moving on, I trust that the failure of committing and the failure of applying what the court has released in actually judging the Israelis for what they have been doing in Gaza is a failure to the whole international justice system. This brings us a lot to do in our countries and on our shoulders as parliamentarians who guard laws and who have their say when it comes to the application of the international law. What is happening now across the world is opening a question, a serious one, about the values of human rights, about all what followed after Berriew agreements, and where do we stand now in terms of the international institutions. What I see is that the international institutions, and the International Court is one of them, are failing to actually achieve their mission, which they were founded originally to deliver and to have. And this shall have a dire consequence everywhere on the world. What we are seeing is an increasing circle of violence, is a mistrust in the international system, is that thousands of souls are gone. A genocide is happening without anyone held really accountable, despite the sharp decisions and the stances of the court. This needs all those brilliant minds and the parliamentarians coming from all over the world to release a sharp stance on where we are going forward and how this would affect the legal framework in our countries and everywhere else in the world. I salute every Palestinian soul, and I salute what is happening for the sake of defending the right to live and the right to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sava. Now it's open for discussion. Those who have comments, but I'll prefer clarifications and questions. And if you want to make a comment, don't make it too long. Thank you. Yes. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Mine is just a concern. During your opening remarks, you mentioned that Zimbabwe is frustrated on how the ICC is handling its business, particularly to African countries. Now, my question to our seniors, the Secretary General, the President, is, can the ICC improve its handling of African cases to address the Zimbabwe case? I understand it's not only Zimbabwe, maybe we have 1 or 2 countries in Africa that are also frustrated. How can we improve our business to handle those countries? I thank you, Moderator.
Thank you very much. Yes, from Zimbabwe. Yes, give that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's Daniel Molokele from Zimbabwe. Sorry, sir.
No, it's okay. Telling them to shut the door at the back because.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
As a human rights lawyer, I believe a lot in the vision of the ICC, and that's why when I became a parliamentarian, I was happy to know that there is an organization like the PGA. I just wanted to emphasize to all of us here that there are 2 concepts involved. There's what we call the multilateralism, which believes in a united communal approach towards enforcement of human rights. But at the same time, there's another view where each individual country considers itself first and then disengages from the multilateral process. So this problem is there not just when it comes to human rights, but also to the fight in terms of climate change. When you are looking at the COP process, you will see that happening. So what I wanted to say to us is, as parliamentarians, our responsibility is to go beyond our national agendas, is to go beyond our different countries, because we want to promote the greater good of humanity. Those who will join later, they will join. But for now, the fact that we have the ICC, I want to imagine the world will be much worse without the ICC. So we need to unite as parliamentarians and find ways to support the ICC so that it becomes more universally accepted and more effective. So we are not supposed to pull it down. We're supposed to put more bricks so that it becomes more influential. Because the opposite process, where each country just wakes up and does whatever they want, will make this world a more horrible place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Another from that end? Nothing? From there? Nothing? From there? Nothing? Up there? Nothing. Okay, good. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Evelina Ohab from the International Bar Association's Human Rights Institute. Thank you very much for your presentations. And I wanted just to mention also in relation to the genocide in Namibia, which was the first genocide of the 20th century. And indeed, in terms of international criminal justice, there is very little that can be done. But in terms of truth and justice, there are definitely avenues that can be looked into. And indeed, some years ago, from what I remember, Germany offered also some kind of recognition of the atrocities as genocide and some compensation. I don't remember exactly what happened there. I remember when it was being reported initially, but again, something to look into and to build upon, but indeed something what we should be learning more about, because not many people know about that genocide and what was being done to the people in Namibia. So thank you very much for mentioning it today. But also, I just wanted to mention very briefly in relation to everything what we discussed today and some of the cases that we raised and the need for justice and accountability for them. And we mentioned, of course, the case of Gaza, we mentioned the case of Ukraine and a few others, but there's so many that we omitted or we did not mention at all, and where there are no options for international justice and accountability. And I'll just mention very briefly one of the Yazidi genocide. Because, of course, the ICC did not have territorial jurisdiction over the situation in Iraq, but a case of genocide that of course, happened just 10 years ago. To this day, 2,600 Yazidi women and children are still missing, are still being enslaved. And this is where, for example, we resorted to domestic courts, specifically in Germany, but also in the Netherlands, to investigate and prosecute the crimes as genocide. And it shows also that, of course, in many cases, we won't be able to resort to the ICC, but then there are domestic courts that can prosecute international crimes. And we also need to consider this option and to look into it a little bit more, especially where, again, there are limitations when the ICC can be involved. So just a very brief comment.
Dankeschön. I think to apologize will be acceptable as German, and the British as well. Thank. We have another, or the last one, yes, okay. The last one from Ukraine.
It's a comment. I firmly believe that aggressors all over the world observed the situation in Ukraine. And if there was no clear reaction so that perpetrators were not immediately punished, then the situation in Gaza might not happen. And I firmly believe that perpetrators all over the world continue to follow situation now, both in Ukraine, in Gaza, and other conflicts around the world might also happen. Because the situation that started to happen in 2014 in Ukraine has purely genocidal nature, and it continued to be in 2022. Because what Russians do in the territory of Ukraine, they destroy museums, they actually burn the libraries on the occupied territory. So they do their best to destroy Ukrainian nation, to say that we do not exist as a nation, and to say that we are not worth to exist as a country, as an independent state. So I do understand that countries all over the world, democratic countries, they have their own internal problems. They have inflation. They have some other issues that they need to do. But I think that we should have a very strong statement and, you know, the last resort, actually to do our best to finish the existing wars and conflicts as soon as possible, that to preserve peaceful world for our kids, for the next generations. If we will not do it now, unfortunately, then the next generations will have to live in a completely unsafe world and to do this job for ourselves. So that's why I call everyone here, actually, to bring to their parliaments, to their leadership, that we should not be just deeply concerned, but we should act immediately and do our best actually to preserve peace and justful peace around the world. And it's not only to win the war on the battlefield, but also that reparations should be paid to the families of victims because they're looking forward for justice. And apart from that, also the accountability, the aggressors should be punished in international criminal court, and everyone should witness that international law actually exists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, okay, fine. You can go on.
The gentleman from Zimbabwe mentioned about criminal court, international criminal court, and not trying to pull it down. I think what is important is to first have cognizance. You know, each and every institution, international institution that's developed, that's created, there has to be some kind of a performance review, if you like. I mean, I believe there have been 11 convictions since 32 years, and I think the process has to be identified and then expedited, because as you know better than me, justice delayed is justice